Welcome and hello everyone on this first NaNoWriMo check-in. How have you all been today? It's the 1st of April, so have you been pranked already? Or did you manage to stay away from it? Today's the first day of the camp. And I was wondering how you all are doing. I hope you all are doing great with your daily goals. I have to admit mine haven't been met yet. But that's because I have been working on several things that I needed to do today. I forgot to plug in my headphone. So, no thank you, no pranks either way. I can totally imagine that. Okay, I hope that you guys also see something, because at the moment my software doesn't seem to want to cooperate completely. Okay. It's all going good. That's good to know. So welcome Dita, welcome other viewers. I invite you to say hi in the chat and let us know how you are doing. Dida, is it Dida or Dida? I forgot to ask, my apologies. Yes, you can see me and you can hear me, perfect. And you've reached your goal today? Oh, I knew you would, because you managed to write so much. And you have a chapter without POV, without a point of view. So does that mean that you have many points of views, or is it Dida? Okay, perfect. Are you confused about which point of view to use? Or do you have an omniscient point of view where basically everyone knows everything? What is the issue? What is the point? The point of the having no point of view in your chapter at the moment? Welcome, Elia. You've reached your daily goal at 5 a.m. Wow. So you've been chilling. I can totally understand that. Where are you from? And did you get up? Is it? How late is it right now for you? Dida, your problem is it's general evasive happenings. And Ilya, you hear a weird noise occasionally, kind of like there is a phone too close to something. Let's see if I put my phone away, maybe that helps. Well, my microphone's close to my laptop, so maybe that's what you hear. I can see if when I put it away, further away, if you guys can still hear me properly, and the noise will be gone. Oh, you're from Finland. Ah. Excellent. So it's 8 p.m. Oh, you're still an hour ahead of us. Okay. You're just a night owl. Oh, wow. Well, I'm a morning bird. Being up early is usually not a huge problem for me. But being a night owl, yeah, no, that's not gonna happen. So congrats on achieving your goal today, Elia. My apologies. So Dida, you have evasive happenings. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? Thank you, Ilya. to let me know that the noise is at the moment gone. It would be great if you tell me indeed when it comes back, if and when it comes back. Sorry guys, I pressed the wrong button. So I just had to take care of a few things on my laptop. So point of views, yeah, that's not always an easy thing to do, and to keep in check. With point of views, you have to keep in mind who can see what, and what you want other characters to already know. These are hard to land in a person, but things happening anyways, like an important event, but people as a crowd seeing it. Okay, so if I understand you correctly, there is, for example, something happening on a square, on a marketplace or something. It's something that is important, probably for all the characters, for all the main characters. And not only one or more of the main characters sees it, but everyone in the crowd sees it. And you want to know how to handle that. Do I understand that correctly? In the meantime, for those who are joining after the live stream, you can always comment below the video. This video will stay online. Also for the cabin members who are in our group, welcome for all the newcomers. And if you join in later, the video will stay online, so you can always check back. And I will try to comment to reply to all the comments that will appear later on. So please leave a comment if you're seeing this once the live stream is over, and share your experiences, and we'll help you the best we can. Okay, so what you can do, Dida, could you say yes, please? What you can do. If you have an event, an important event that's happening in such an occasion, there are a couple of options you have. One of the best things I personally experience is have one character really observe it, and not only how shall I say this? Not only witness it, but also describe make obvious what there are, what their emotions are, what they feel when they see what is happening. For instance, if two people are having a heated argument, and it's gathering a crowd, because you know that will happen if it happens on a marketplace. Does your main character feel confused as to why it is happening? Does your main character feel a bit uncomfortable seeing it? So make that obvious, and later on, that main character could discuss it with other characters and see how they experienced it. Dida, how to choose the best POV out from what's going on? Well, what I sometimes do is write the same scene from different point of views, just to see what is happening, and which character experiences it the best, and what kind of emotions you see, what is happening around those two people arguing. Are other important characters pulling away? Things like that. Are guards coming? If you have, for example, a medieval or a high fantasy story, you'll often see guards around somewhere, or people who are better at fighting. Or also in modern stories where you are in a busy market and suddenly people start to argue, you will also see people joining in and butting in, either to draw them apart. And in such a moment, it is good if you don't know exactly whose point of view to use in the final version. Just write a few options. Write the same scene, but from a few times from different point of views. Write it from the main character. Write it from one of her sidekicks, but also write it from someone who's in the crowd. Those all can give you a lot of clues to see what is the best point of view to use at that moment. But also to see what information you are missing, what information other characters are missing. Because let's be honest, we can't know everything. In my own book, I see that as well. Is it better to show magic happenings from someone strong or someone weak in magic? That's a good question. I have to be honest, I think it's good to see both at some point in the story. Sorry, my nose is itching. I have a hay fever, so my nose will itch sometimes. If it's someone if one of the main characters is at the beginning of the story is weak in magic, I think it's important to show that, because during the story, your main character will learn more about their magic, or will see why they shouldn't use the magic. So in that respect, it's very important to see that person who is weak in magic. And it's also important to see someone who is strong with their magic, be it a friend, or be it a teacher, or be it the antagonist. Because you can show that way where the magic can end up and what it can do, what it can cause also. So yeah, I would show both sides. Don't evade someone who's not strong in magic yet, or chooses to be not strong in magic. Did a nice point to what infos the MC is missing. Oh, thank you. Would you say the main reason for choosing POV is showing changes? Yes, and especially when you choose to use multiple point of views in an entire story, then you can show the changes several characters have been through. If you choose to use only one point of view in a story, you'll have to how do I say that? You'll have to seek other ways to show what the main character has been through, and especially how he or she has grown, and the points that he or she hasn't grown in. When you use different or various point of views, it's easier to show. It's easier for yourself, but it's also better for the reader, because the reader not only sees the growth, but also sees what the other characters feel about the growth, because that's also important. I mean, it's all nice and dandy that someone is becoming very strong in magic, but if the best friend or the father or the mother or the teacher or I don't know is extremely worried about the level of, let's say, black magic someone is achieving, that is something that is important to know. And someone who grows only in the black magic, and when you see it only from that point, they might not like the fact that their parents or their teacher or their best friend doesn't like that he or she is growing in that black magic, and so then they will be stubborn and do not want to accept advice. So yeah, in that way, you will only see one side. And as you also, as a famous saying is, there are two sides of a story. Well, actually, there are multiple sides of a story. So yeah, it's essential to use various point of views, and to show changes through that. Dida, how many point of views should a novel have? Ooh, that's a good one. I have to be honest and say that currently my project I'm working on may have too many point of views. Let's just say you have to have as many point of views to show to show the development of the story and the development of the characters. You have to have the point of views where you can show what is happening in other parts of the world. For example, if you have a character, let's say practical, we have a character, our cabin, our NaNoWriMo cabin group is from multiple countries, from all over the world. Let's say something happens in the Netherlands, but people in I don't know, in Indonesia or in the United States, they cannot know what is happening with me. They cannot know what is happening in my house or in my town, unless it's going to be really, really big international news. That's the only way. But what is happening to me can be very significant to what is happening or what will happen in a story later on. So at some point you need that information, but you have to make sure that you don't have too many point of views, because otherwise it's going just to be such a mix of point of views that your reader just won't like it anymore. Dida, you're saying one should have as few as possible. You have, yeah, in a way, as few as possible, but as many as needed to tell your story and to convey the changes, both within the characters and within the story and within the world. That could be 2 point of views, that could be 10 point of views. That's it's not easy, especially keeping track of everything. one of the things you have to keep, one of the things that's good to keep in mind is to, if you are using multiple point of views in a story, you have to make it very clear whose point of view the reader is experiencing when reading a chapter or a paragraph. So make that very clear. Don't mix things up, because at some point, even you as a writer, and I personally experienced that, at some point you won't know who is saying what and who is doing what and who is seeing what. And that's important, because that will bring so much confusion. So if you are using multiple point of views, please keep that in mind. Dida, can I have a horse being a point of view? Yeah, why not? Horses are not just, how do I say that? Are not just animals. Especially if you have horses as more than sentient beings, if they can communicate somehow, if they can communicate with the main characters or with one of the main characters, that is a very important aspect, and in that case it's very good to have the point of view from a horse. I think there was a movie about a war horse. I don't know exactly the name. Let me see if I can find it. I think that was short. It's literally called the war horse, I think. If I remember it correctly, yeah, here the movie was about a soldier who was enlisted after his beloved horse was sold to the cavalry. But the you can see it from the horse's point of view. There are also stories about the dogs having a point of view. I mean, you can have all animals. There are whole movies about only the animals having the point of views. So that can be truly hilarious. I mean, we always say, what if the dogs or what if the cats could talk? And what if the wolves would have ears? Well, place yourself in their shoes, sorta, and see what that can give for a result. I think it can be hilarious, and I think it can really contribute to the story. Lily sees it. Thank you for joining. Are there any things you think should be avoided when different characters' point of views cross paths? Things that make it good as well. Things to avoid. Well, there is one. Do not let one character say to another, well, you know, that's I don't know. As you know, that and that can't happen. Well, why would the other character know that? Also, if let's say character A is in country A and character B is in country B, the only way that character A can know what character B has been doing is either if they have a crystal ball, or some other way to keep track of character B. So they can't comment. They can't comment on what character B has been doing while they were away from character A, unless they have received that information. Like, for example, character A is a king and has, or a queen, and has spies everywhere, and she lets one of the noble women come to the court because she has heard disturbing things from her spies. At that moment, the queen can refer to things that the noblewoman has done. So yeah, in that case, that can happen. And from the earlier, we might have seen things from the noblewoman's perspective. For example, she has done some things that, well, can't be considered good, but she did it because she had to save her family, for example. So yeah, that's in that case, she's called to court, and the 2 point of views cross, and the queen can know it. And things that make it good as well. Well, one thing is, one thing I think is always important is, instead of pretending character A knows everything that's been going on with character B, let character A ask what's going on, or what has happened, or refer to something character B wrote in a letter, or what she heard from someone else. In that way, you can still draw the two POVs together, and avoid that that character A knows too much about character B, which she can't know. Bright Neon Brilliancy, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Would you say a benefit of third person is when the MC knows information that you don't want the reader to know yet? It makes for a good plot twist, though I worry the reader might feel cheated. That's a good one. You get a good question. Well, let me tell you, I've got several of those in my books. One thing that's important in such a case is that you build in a lot of foreshadowing. I remember reading Game of Thrones, and I remember watching Game of Thrones. I've seen all 8 seasons. I really do not agree with season 8. I will not spoil anything, but the end of season 8, I had this moment like, yeah, I did not see that one coming. That's I don't agree with that. And the same goes for oh god, what's the name of that book? I don't remember anymore. Doesn't matter. There's also an ending where I had something like, no, this cannot happen. Not in the last 20 pages of the book. Then you indeed really feel cheated. So if you build in a plot twist, make sure it's built in the entire story. So foreshadow it, build the foreshadowing in, plan it. The best I know at this moment already, I'm writing a series, and I know I need to build in foreshadowing in my first book. I really need to adjust a lot of things for that, for things that are happening in book 2 and in book 5, and to make sure that the readers will understand it, I need to build in that foreshadowing. But foreshadowing also includes things like two characters who see each other but don't know they are who they are. So, for example, character A sees character B, but doesn't see the face of character B, but sees his back. So later on, your readers might say in book 1 they've seen each other, or rather, character A has seen character B, but only has seen characters B backside. Later on, in let's say book 2 or book 3, your readers might think, but hey, wait, they saw each other. And then you can say, no, she only saw his backside, so she didn't know it was him. So build it in. Make sure you have these moments where afterwards, if you read back, even if it's just one story, if you read it back afterwards, then you can see the points where you say, okay, yeah, it does add up. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Make sure you don't cheat your readers, but it's totally fair to build it in properly in your books. Lily, thank you. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad that answered your question. Dida, how many angles can one event be told from without making it confusing? Well, that's a good one. I would say probably, yeah. I have to admit it's something I'm having trouble with as well. I have written one scene, but I have one chapter rather. And I wrote it from what I thought were two perspectives. It became three perspectives, 3 point of views, and all the other characters are at that moment they are observing, but hardly really taking any action. They are not included in the point of view. I think personally. After more than three point of views of one and the same event, I think it gets really confusing. You know what they say, where two people argue, the truth is in the middle. The third might be a sort of an objective point of view. Bring in a fourth, and you start to get confusion. So yeah, that's try to limit it to 3 angles. Is what I would say. Is what I try also. I won't pretend that I always manage to do that. I have to be honest in that. And Lily and Bright Neon Brilliance, how are you doing with your challenges, with your daily goals at the moment? Dida, when is a point of view weak? That's a fair question. A point of view is weak when the reader thinks it's someone else's point of view, or when the reader thinks doesn't feel the emotion that the character from the point of view is going through. Make sure your character is going through the motions, is going through the emotions, and really feels things, whether it be good or bad. So that has to be obvious in the point of view. So yeah, that's I think that's the most important thing. Lily sees it. I'm halfway through mine. Wow, you're doing great. Congrats. That's good to hear. Is there anything we can help you with to get you through the other half? Bright Neon Brilliancy. I've been to work, so only just getting comfy at home, just doing some light brainstorming at the moment, and hope to have some words down at some point. Oh, I know the feeling. It's especially after a hard day's work, it's not always easy to get some words down. One advice I can give you for that is don't sit down, well, depending on what's comfortable for you, of course, but especially if you have you have a long day at work, don't sit down for hours just to get the words out. Sometimes it can work better to write, I don't know, for 15 or 20 minutes in the morning, and half an hour during lunchtime, and half an hour after dinner, to get your words down, or to get anything what you want to write down. Then when you go sit in the evening for 2 hours, unless of course like Ilya, you are a night owl and you work best during the night, so that can work as well. Dida, what should be the point of view be a first person? What do you mean by that? Lily says, I have to get the little one to bed, but hoping for a productive time in a few hours. That's good to hear. I wish you good luck and fun with getting your little one to bed. And maybe we'll see you later. I wish you a lot of fun writing. And what currently are the point of views you all are using in your current projects? And have you used specific point of views in previous projects that you will not use again? If I look at myself, in the past I've managed to really write myself into a block because I was using too many point of views in one chapter and in one scene, in one paragraph. At some point I didn't even know anymore who was doing what, and I got myself confused, let alone someone who had to read it. So that was text that I wouldn't give away. And that was the moment that I decided to have a point of view per chapter. And if I really needed a second point of view in a chapter, then I would clearly separate it into paragraphs with a white line between it. Brightney and Brilliancy. I'm fine with writing in the evening. I'm just torn between ideas, so I'm just hoping to settle on one tonight so I can actually start. Woes of being a writer. Well, I know the feeling. Especially during these months of NaNoWriMo, why not start with both and continue with what feels best during the month? Don't limit yourself. Dida, okay, what reasons should I pick a person in first person, the I? That's a good question. It's something I have never done. You could use the I form, the first person view, for, well, what would you use it? What would I use it for? I would use it if I want to keep it very close to the vest, and for someone who, for a character who feels like they're really alone in the world, and who doesn't make easy contact. I think I would choose the first person in point of view in such a story. But it's I don't know. I've never used it. Yeah. Or maybe when you when it's a very emotional thing and you want to drag in the readers. Because it's something that that is really unique, really, I don't know, like a soldier who's been through war, who's been through trauma, and who tells that story, be it in a high fantasy, be it in real life, biographical. You can, I think I would do that. Ilya, I'm third person limited all the way. Once wrote in second person, but it was for a specific prompt that required it. Yeah, I'm using third person limited as well. That's I think that gives the option to let the reader slowly discover things together with the characters. That's why I like third person limited so much, just like you. Bright Neon Brilliancy. I used to write a lot in first person, but that was for very character-driven stories. My current ideas are fantasy and would benefit more from third person. I haven't ever done multi-point of views before. Yeah, character-driven. I think you've got a point there. And do you mean character-driven purely that one character? Yeah, in that case, I can understand that, yes. Dida, at the learning points that no one wants to admit having been at. Great to know I'm not the only one to confuse several point of views to one scene. Yeah, I know. It's so bad when that happens. Lily, in a series, if there are 2 point of views in a book and then one of them doesn't return in the next book, even though they are still alive, do you think the reader would feel cheated? I can't decide. Personally, no, I wouldn't feel cheated as long as the second point of view is important to that first book, to the first story. If that point of view is needed to drive the story along and to show the progress the first character is going through and the story is going through. So yeah, then it's okay. Don't include a second point of view or how many ever point of views. Just to include more point of views, just for the sake of doing it. Include point of views that are needed to drive the story along, and if they don't get in the second book, that's okay, because you needed that person in the first book, and you can perhaps refer to the second person in the second book. For example, where your main character in the second book has heard something about that second character from the first book, or has gotten a letter, or I don't know, has seen a news article, things like that. Dida, remember that in yeah, I know what you mean, but I loved Matt Cawthon and was waiting for another chapter with him for books, but he had a broken leg. Yeah, when you have got a broken leg, the Wheels of Time, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, when you've got a broken leg, you simply cannot do a lot. I mean, I've been in a casket with both my legs separately over time. You're very limited with what you can do, even using crutches, and you are really dependent on others to get you basically anywhere. So yeah, I can totally imagine the Wheel of Time. That's a whole different time period. So those people can't travel that far that fast. So yeah, I can imagine that he wasn't in a few books for a while. Right, Brilliancy, cheated, no, but admittedly, if I preferred one character over the other, I might feel a ways about it. But don't force a point of view if that character is no longer needed, as that will feel. I completely agree with you. I completely agree. Yeah, the Wheel of Time did that. Yeah, it just popped into my head. Still a series I need to read. I think I read the first book, maybe I know I read the first book, maybe the second, but I don't think I read any of the other books. I still have it on my wish list to have them all in my collection, though, because I don't. And what are books with great point of views that you have read and great point of views that you would want to use, or the way they used it? Let me put it that way. For example, I like Diana Gabaldon's way of writing. She writes from mainly two characters. and that's she's the writer of Outlander, with Jamie and Claire, and you see a lot of Claire, and sometimes things from Jamie. They are all written in mostly in third person, sometimes also in first person. So that's a good one. I also I have to the books from Sarah J. Maas, the first series, that really opened my eyes to having multiple point of views, but separated in chapters. And then I read Game of Thrones, and well, there I saw it as well. Yeah, that was for me the reason to use, and of course because I wrote myself into a block with using way too many point of views in one chapter. So yeah, that was for me the reason to use a point of view per chapter, and to have a max of 2 point of views per chapter if it's really, really needed. And that's the only time I use a second point of view in a chapter. Dida, what options do we have when choosing point of view? First and third, limited and omni. Multiple, yeah. There's first, second, also third, and omniscient indeed. I think it's also sometimes called fourth. And the third is limited and omniscient indeed. I remember a book, The Discovery of Heaven, I think it was. It started with 2 deities, gods, I don't remember, who knew everything. And they were basically the starting narrators of the story, narrators of the story. So they had this omniscient view. They knew what happened, and the whole story just went along. From there, it started as third person, if I remember correctly. Omnipotent, the all-knowing. Yes, that's usually when they have deities or the narrator who tells the story, like come and sit by the fire and I will tell you a story. So and they might even comment in the story on things that are happening. Personally, it's not my favorite, but if you manage to do it well, it can be very interesting, because you see these deity-like figures or the narrators commenting on things happening that they don't understand or they don't think are wise decisions, for example. First person, well, that is I. Second person, I have to admit I've never written that. That's basically you do this, you do that. I have to admit that I don't know why you would use that. That's I don't know. Third person, I think personally third person limited. I'm with I think Lily said that. Third person limited is the choice I would make, but third person omniscient, it's doable, but you have to keep track of things. So yeah, those are the options. It's good that you ask, because it's a good thing to keep in mind that there are several options you can use. You're not limited to just third person limited or just first person. There are many ways to write a story. Brilliancy, I'm sorry, I'm gonna cut your name short at that. Is there a specific name for an omni point of view that also talks directly to the reader? I think it's just a style of omni. omnipotence, like Dida earlier said. Usually it's a narrator, like the grandma sitting by the fire and talking to her grandkids, telling a story to her grandkids. That's usually the point of view where she talks to the reader, her grandkids, or when you are reminiscing about things that happened in the past. Memoirs of a Geisha is written that way. Although I recently found out that Memoirs of a Geisha is not written. The way it was written is not written with the consent of the geisha who was actually interviewed for that. So I have now gotten as a gift the book written by herself. But that's a story that starts as a story where the geisha starts to tell the story, and then we get dragged into the past and into the story itself. Yeah. Dida had a story by the fireplace and commenting. Yeah, that's probably in 1800s. Yeah. Well, to be honest, The Memoirs of a Geisha is a fairly recent book. I think that's a few decades, no, not even a few decades old, and it's in a way written in the same way. Ilya, I've heard of people writing fanfics in second person, so it's like romance where the readers is the MC. Okay, I haven't heard of. I haven't read those kind of fanfics. Can you give an example? Can you give a little piece of text like as an example? Brilliancy. I should probably change my YouTube name. I had it since I was a teenager. Oh well, if this works for you, then it works. Just keep it. Yeah, omnipotent is all powerful, omniscient is all knowing. Ah, okay, that's the difference. Okay, I always mix those two up. It's good to know. Thank you. I learned something today. Excellent. I like those. I like that. I'm just reading back to see what you all guys said about point of views you're using yourself right now, and I think I asked, but I don't think I saw an answer. Have you guys used a point of view that you in past projects that you would never use again? I have to admit I haven't done that, but like I said, second person point of view, I can't see myself using it. First person, I've tried it, but it's not for me. So yeah, I used one. I have to correct myself. I used one that I won't use in the future anymore, probably. Dina, great to know. Yeah, I find it always great if we can exchange experience and knowledge. Second person is a pizza, Dina. Yeah, I totally agree. And have you all had your snacks and your drinks today? Keep that in mind when you start writing and you get into that mode of writing. Make sure you eat enough and you drink enough, because that's important. It's important to keep yourself healthy. And also it's important to celebrate milestones and to treat yourself every now and then, especially during NaNoWriMo months. That's really important. Lily, I'm using first person, but I constantly slip between past or present tense and scenes and have to try and correct in edits. Ah, okay. I can imagine that's difficult. And when you are switching back to past tense, Is it because it's some kind of flashback, or is it because it just writes easier that way? Ilya, I haven't read fan fiction at all. Tried as a kid, but then found out what slash fiction is and never touched it. Yeah, I know that. Slash fiction is something that doesn't attract me, and nowadays fan fiction, it's yeah, what can I say? It's often written so, I don't know. It can't keep me entertained long. But yeah, you canon character I once saw people talking about on Tumblr. Okay. Ah, that way. Okay. Indeed, our present tense is also tense. Yeah. Ilya, this 200 letter limit on comment is a pain. Yeah, I know, and unfortunately, that's something that YouTube has said, and I can't do anything about it. Brilliancy. I used to write in present tense, but was told reading it was jarring. That was a nasty habit to break. Oh, I can imagine. I've never written in present tense. I know that that it's something that is advised. But yeah, no, present tense, that's not easy to do. Lily, it's when something exciting happens, I move right like it's happening now, but then remember I'm supposed to be writing about what I did. It's right from, that way. Okay. Yeah, that's well, just for the moment, just write the story, and editing comes afterwards. Yeah, that's the best advice I can give you. Just go along with the story, unless you write yourself into a block. Then I'd say quit and start rewriting your story. But as long as you can keep writing it, then keep writing it. Thomas Rudas, thank you for joining us. You're welcome here. What do you think about unreliable narrators? Oh, that's a good one. Well, you have to be very careful with that. It can result in the reader not liking your book anymore. So you have to be very careful when you do that. Personally, I wouldn't do it, because for me that brings too much risk with everything I have going on. In my stories, I have already enough plot twists and intrigues I have to write, without also having an unreliable narrator point of view in the story. So yeah, when you have that, make sure that in the end, when the reader discovers it, they don't feel cheated. It has to be. It has to build up to it. It's the same when you have plot twists. Make sure your reader knows when reading your story again, that they can discover where the signs are that things aren't what they seem. And Thomas, what point of view do you use at the moment in your stories? I'd like to hear about that as well. Brilliancy. I like unreliable narrators as long as I get the inkling that they are unreliable. I feel like a detective looking for clues of what could be going on underneath everything. Well, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah. And what are currently? I mean, we're still at the start of camp, so a lot can happen in 30 days, and a lot is about to happen in 30 days. That's my experience so far with all the camps I've done so far, and all the full NaNoWriMos I've done so far. A hell of a lot can happen. I mean, you can write yourself into a block. You can, during the process, discover that what you had in mind isn't what the story turns out to be. You can also discover that your world building isn't complete, and you need extra information, or your character isn't well built. So a lot can happen in 30 days, but that's also a fun challenge. Are there right now already things that you guys think, oh, I don't know if I can do that, or I don't know what I should do with a situation like this? Just share, and we'll see if we can help you. And Tamas, third usually, but never omniscient, even though I like the story within a story format. Ah, okay. Well, that's fun. That's fun. So you're usually using third person view limited, like I do and like others do. Yeah, well, that's fun. It's a lot of fun. And how did you guys prepare for Camp Nano? Did you just start today? Like, oh, I found out it was today, or have you been preparing for months or a couple of days? I know there are people who will just start and see what happens during the month, and there are people who've been planning for months already. Dida, do you think the main villain should be one of the point of views when having many? Well, should is a heavy word. The most important thing is that it has to be clear in the end how the main villain got to where she is right now. In my story, I do write. I also write the point of view of the main antagonist, because she likes intrigues and she likes to mess things up. So yeah, several things are also happening around her and with her, and things that she's doing and saying that are important, and that other characters can't hear or can't know. But those are things that are important for the story. So unless you want to make it a whole thing like where someone says, "Oh, she did this and this and this and that," so better tell instead of showing. Then you don't have to include the point of view of the villain, or when you manage to make the actions of the villain clear without having the point of view of the villain. But one downside of not having the point of view of the villain is that you don't know the reasons and the feelings of that villain, of that antagonist. Why does she do what she does? Why does she say what she says? Why does she hate? I don't know. Why does she hate dragons in my books, for example, or rather the dragon riders? Anybody can guess. But we never know. And how? What are her fears? What are her? What brings her true joy? And it's always how can I say this? Also, villains also have a life and also have goals and things they want to accomplish. And that's I think that can only become really obvious or really portrayed well in the story if you have the point of view of the villain as well. Tamas, yes, pretty much. Perfect. Brilliancy. I tried to pick a project for the last most, but I guess I procrastinated. Feels like I'm winging it at the moment, but I'm determined to not make this another failed nano, planned or not. Well, Brilliancy, I can tell you, planned or not, we can help you with succeeding nano this time. That's the fun of it. And when you have the support of a whole group, we can encourage each other. We can help you. We can help each other through the bad times, through the blocks, etc. So we can surely help you with that. Ilya, the setting is one I've been building for years, but the camp story is one inspired by a dream I had 3 or so nights ago. It amused me too much to not work with it. Oh, that sounds awesome. That's really great. And yeah, I know the feeling of building it for years. That's the series I'm working on now. Before I actually started to write it, I had been thinking about the world as a whole of that stories. Originally, I wanted to write my story in present day Earth until I thought, okay, so I have dragons and not just 2 or 3 dragons like in Game of Thrones. No, I have just, I don't know, as many dragons as there are elephants in the world or more. So how do you feed them and where can they stay? I mean, I don't see them living in my town or, I mean, I live in a village of 10,000 people, I think. No large rooftops, things like that. But I don't see them living in New York or whatever city with all those skyscrapers without, I mean, I don't know, tearing down the skyscrapers because they fly away. So in the end, I decided, well, okay, that's not gonna happen. Do I want to put them in a very early Earth version? Nah, you know what? I'll just design a whole new world for it. So yeah, that's how I got to where I am now, with a complete new world and the story written in that world. And that's when I had a better idea of that world. That's when I started writing it. Ilya, the setting is one I've been built. Oh, sorry, I already said that. Tamas, I've been thinking about this story for a while now. It is a part of the larger story I've been thinking about for years now. This particular story is a prompt from the Hungarian Nano Discord. Oh, awesome. So you've been thinking about it. Have you written parts of your larger story yet, or is that all just more? How can I say it? More like a summary or like a very short outline, or just jotting down ideas for that larger story. And in my case, if I look at it, I have the series. But I also have a very small story that I still have to finish, which tells the background of the use of silk by the dragon riders, how they got the silk, how they got access to the silk. There's a whole story about it, and it also still works down in their culture and in the way they deal with that other country. So that's a story I still want to write, and it's not directly part of that larger story, but it's more like a background story. And who knows, maybe I'll publish it one day as well. Has anyone else written stories like that or planned stories like that? That's either a background for the larger project you were working on, or or really a part of that story. Maybe some piece of history that plays an important role in your story. Those are things that can help as well. Things your characters can learn about. It's all it can be fun to write, and also when you are stuck on writing, sometimes it can help to write some background information, to write a story that's essentially background information or essentially history for whatever. Dita, oh yes, the short story of how to harvest the pecuniary tree. Okay, that's interesting. Oh, pecuniary tree. Did I read that sometime? Because yeah. I think I read that sometime. The wooden money. Yeah, I think I'd like to make a short story collection. Well, that would be a good one. Yeah, I'd like to see that. Ilya, yes, I do have a world building doc where I plot down stuff like how was the world created and where did God, Spirit, Demon, X come from? Time will tell if they ever see the light of day. Well, the fun thing of things like that is you can also just write it for yourself. And it's not necessarily something you need to publish. You can just write it for yourself, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just fun to do. And who knows? Maybe someday someone would love to see it, and you can post it as a fan service to fans of your stories. Did I told you about it? Yeah, I think you did indeed. Yeah. Brilliancy, I end up getting too caught up on background stories. I overdevelop plot points or characters or places to the point that the main story becomes something I didn't intend. Oh, that's a hazard. That's basically a hazard of world building and story Bible building. Yeah. Well, I kind of know that feeling. My original idea for my book was one book, and it quickly became a trilogy. So yeah, that happened. I still have to finish. I still haven't completely finished the first story. I have to be honest about that. But in the outlines, it quickly became a trilogy. And at some point, don't ask me how, but at some point, it became 5 books. And then it became complicated. So I know that feeling, but it's also fun to do. But one of the important things that I experienced is that I have to I also have to start writing the story, the main story, because at some point you can come to the conclusion that you just don't need all those background information and all that history. You just need to write the story. It's like you do with world building, or you can do with world building. You need as much world building as your story needs to be able to be told. For example, in my story, I have a big city. And I hadn't completely thought out the layout of the city and things like that. I was like, oh, well, that will come. And for now, I don't need it. At some point, I was stuck on why one of the characters hadn't seen some of the other characters for more than a decade. I didn't understand that. Until I looked at my old hometown and I thought, okay, there's about 100 or 200,000 people living there. And if you live, let's say, on the east side of the town, the chance that you see people on the west side, unless you really intend to meet them, is slim to none. And suddenly I understood why that one character hadn't met those other characters for such a long time. And that's when I discovered that I needed more world building. I needed to know what that city looked like, and how far apart things were, and things like that. So that's when you start to world build again, and I feel the same for background about background stories, and not only background stories of the characters, but also the history of a city or the history of a country. You can write it because it's interesting for you, but do not let it hold back the development of your main story. Write it because you need it to drive your story along. You need that information to be able to develop your story further, or to develop your characters further. I would say that that's pretty much the limit, for my personal limit for background stories. I mean, it's fun to write background stories, but that's the way I try. My emphasis on that. That's the way I try to limit myself in writing background stories, because otherwise I get lost in writing background stories. Thomas, well, I did write down one novella. The first part of the story is composed of those, sort of like a series, but mostly just outlines so far. Well, having written a novella is a very good start, and it can help you move along with your main story. It can be a sort of a base for your main story. Brilliancy, it just grows and grows. Yeah, I know the feeling. I end up getting lost down the rabbit hole and struggle to come back to the original story. It becomes procrastination rather than effective world building. It can become that. The moment you feel that, like that, start asking yourself the question, why do I need this side story? Why do I need this background story? Do I need it to bring my story forward? If you don't need it to bring your story forward, if it's just to amuse you yourself is also good. Don't get me wrong. But if you want to finish your main story, put aside the background story if you don't need it, and then continue with your main story. Dida, should we be world building and plan point of view beforehand? Let me switch those two up. I'll first answer the last your last point. Plan point of view beforehand. Yes, I think that when you start to write, you don't necessarily need to know exactly whose point of views you're all including. But you need to know where to start with the point of views, because that's important. And of course, along the line, you can find out that point of view doesn't work, and that you need another point of view. Of course, that can happen. At that point, your main character might change. Or not, or it can happen that that the development of your main character is for a great part shown through the point of views of other characters. So yeah, point of view, deciding on that, yeah, at least for the first couple of chapters of your story, that's important. Yes. Should we world build beforehand? One moment, please. You can do that. I did that for a part. You can do that, especially if you have no idea of your world yet. If you have some idea of your world and it's enough to get your story started, just start writing. The way I see it, world building and writing go hand in hand. You world build to develop the world your story can develop in. But you also world build the moment that you see that you cannot continue with your story because you don't know enough of your world. So they go hand in hand. You don't need to think up your entire world before you start writing. That's not necessary. I mean, there are people who let me put it different. You can start writing without knowing anything of your world yet, and include the world details later. You can just, especially if it's your first draft, you can just write the story and just see where it takes you. And during the writing process, you will see where you need some more world building, where you are missing information. World building can be a very big project, but it can also be very limited. I mean, if you write a fantasy story in present day Earth, basically all you need to world build is what is different from present day Earth in your fantasy story. Why is magic possible in present day Earth? Things like that. How do we perceive glamours and magic? Other kind of creatures, so not animals and birds and insects, but for example ogres and elves and creatures like that, folk like that. What place do they take on Earth? So that's the part of world building you need, but you don't have to limit yourself in the way that you need world building first. No, it goes hand in hand. Tamas, history of the world and the societies inhabiting it is very important in my opinion. Not only that it's explained, but it has to be explained clearly. Something strictly, in my opinion, Tolkien is not very great at. Yeah. That's true. But I think that we can. We should dive deeper into that at a later time, at a later Q&A session, because that's really part of world building, of strictly world building, and not so much point of view. What as Dida points out very fairly. It can contribute to what a character knows or doesn't know, so that in that respect, the point of view of let's say character A, who knows nothing about the society of character B, that's something that's important. If let me say that's something that can be important. Yes, but as the question in itself, I agree. It's important. It can be important if it serves your story. But I'd suggest we take that question for another time in another session. Did I miss any questions? I think not. I'm reading back to see if I missed any questions. Please let me know if I did. Has your point of views influenced in how you world build? Yeah, in a way it has, because I have specifically developed part of my worlds because I needed it for my characters, or for what my characters went through, or for be it my main characters or my my antagonists. Yeah, I have two in the story. So in that in that respect, point of views can also go hand in hand with world building. The how do I say it? I knew that certain characters had lived in Dragon City, for example, and other characters lived in the White City. Those are two cities that are really far apart. They're on the other side of a continent. Yeah, I had to know what the implications were of them living in each city, and either knowing or not knowing anything about the other city. So I had to figure out how it was possible, what they knew. So in that respect, yeah, it was important to, or the point of views have influenced my world building. Yeah, kind of like what Tomas said about the history of the world and the societies. I've written parts of the history and parts of information of the societies, because my characters needed that information. One of my characters is a healer, and a water mage, and as a healer she knows a lot about different folk, and she has to know a lot, otherwise she can't heal them. But she also has to know a lot about, or at least a basic understanding of their societies, of their habits, of their customs. So those had to be written, and that it might not all come into my book, but in that way, yes, again, the point of views have influenced what I do with my world building, and what I build, what I write, and how much of it I include in my books. Yeah, good question, Dina. And thanks, Tamas, for your input on that in hindsight. I see it's already 8:30. I'd like to slowly end this session, because I feel I'm getting tired. I think we can take a max of 3 questions, and then we can see when the next session will be. Does anyone have any questions left for tonight about point of views, or about the start of Camp Nano, and how we manage to keep track of things, and keep balance while writing and leading our normal lives? How do you all keep a balance and make sure that you don't get lost both in your writing and in your private life? If I look at myself, I usually take the last 2 weeks of April as a holiday, and luckily this year again, my boss approved it, so that was good. And that's because I know myself, and in the second half of the month, I usually start to write more. So that's how I try to keep a balance for myself. Brilliancy, is there a book or story that has been from a point of view that you think would have been better in another point of view? Oh, that's a good one. To be honest, I think the Twilight series. How do you call that? It's not called the Twilight series. Or it is. It is. It's called the Twilight series. The Twilight book series. I think the way it was written, but that's my honest opinion, my humble opinion. The way it was written doesn't show enough of Bella's growth. To be honest, I did not see that much growth. Those stories were mostly written from Bella's point of view, but for my feeling, I just missed a lot. And I read the books a few times. I think it would have been better if we had seen at least multiple point of views. So not only Bella's, but also Edward's and oh god, what is his name? The wolf boy. I lost his name for now. Jake. I think it would have been better if we had seen more of their point of views as well. Granted, they're teenagers and a lot happens. So a lot happens also in a short time. So we don't always see the growth. Let's be honest. That's the way it is. But I think that's one of the books I really think could have benefited from at least multiple point of views to make the growth more obvious. And what is a book you have read where you think a different point of view would have been better? Brilliancy. Jacob, thank you, Thomas. Jacob, that's right, not Jake. Jacob. Dita, I just try not to do absolutely everything. Oh, I know that feeling. That's a whole rabbit hole that I sometimes can't seem to get out of. And then I'm very glad with your help. Brilliancy, we do have Midnight Sun for it. Yeah, for Edward's point of view, but I would have preferred more of Mother Cullen's for a better understanding of the vampire lifestyle. Yeah, the Cullens, Mother Cullen would have been very interesting. Father, same. I think we didn't see enough of Charlie. He was... that was also rather limited. Yeah, the other Cullens, yeah. Father, mother, and yeah, it would have been fun to see more point of views of the Cullen family and also others, because it was too limited. It was too limited. True, Charlie's point of view would have been good. Yeah, indeed. Because that was just it was so limited from what we saw, from what we get to see, and it was yeah. It could have been interesting, I think. Tamaz, is there a book whose point of view you would change? And Elia, I don't know if you're still here. And Lily. I'm just going through the chat to see who I'm missing right now. Keep hydrated, people. That's really important. Even if it's cold outside and you think that the heat doesn't do much because there isn't much heat, but it's important to stay hydrated. So keep drinking this month. Keep drinking enough. Ilya, I don't know any stories I changed point of view from. Yeah, that's okay as well. Brilliancy. Imagine being a police chief and your daughter is secretly running around with vampires whilst you're trying to figure out why people are going missing in your town. A nice spin on it. Indeed. That would have been very interesting. Because it's, yeah. And he doesn't know anything. I mean, how doesn't he know anything? That's... I can't imagine that. And not only vampires, but also the wolves. I mean, how can you miss that? Did a nice one. Tamaz, I can't think of any at the moment. Yeah, well, you know, if it comes, if you find some, let us know. In the future, there's plenty of time to let us know. And for those who haven't joined our Discord yet and who would find it fun to keep in touch outside of the Nano site as well, check the links in the Nano site, and we can add you to the, and you can join the Discord from there. And let us know if the links on the Nano site don't work. Just post it in the chat, and we'll post the link. We'll copy the link in the chat in the Nano site. So yeah. Ilya, though, I suddenly remembered how I started reading the Dragonlance books from the middle, since it's all my local library had. And man, it was jarring when the point of view switched to some random woman in the middle of a book. I can totally imagine that, yeah. And I assume that I have never read the Dragonlance books, but I assume that the woman was someone who played an important part in the earlier books. You find, as in, I started with Time of Twins, so not in the middle of a trilogy. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with the Dragonlance books. Let me see what I can find out for information about that. Oh! Okay, I see your point. Yeah. You started with Time of Twins, and that was the third book, I think, if I read this correctly. Because there's Dragons of Autumn Twilight, Dragons of Winter Night, Dragons of Spring Dawning, and I assume they made a typo here. Dragons of Summer Flame, or did that indeed... Or was that indeed published in 1995? Because after that, Time of the Twins come. Wow, that's a long series. Holy moly. Wow. Oh, wow. Okay. Now, I thought my series was going to be a long one. Nita, that's the danger of picking wrong point of view. Or the wrong book. Time of Twins was either the third or the fourth book. So, yeah. I know there's an advice going around where people say that readers should be able to read a book on its own, but I don't agree with that. If you have a series to write, then if your story spans over multiple books, then people can't read a book as a standalone if it's a chronological series. I mean that just has its implications. I mean I've read what's the title of that series? Throne of Glass series, and I started I think in the third or the fourth book, just like you did, Ilya. And yeah, I think I started either in Queen of Shadows or Empire of Storms, and I was like, and I had no idea, and I was like, at some point, okay, where did that guy come from? I mean, it wasn't even his point of view. It was just, where did he come from? Because she seemed to know a lot, and she seemed to have met him, and I was like, I haven't seen him in the whole book. And that's when I discovered there were other books before the book that I had picked. And that was in the bookstore where I bought the book. So in the end, I bought the other books as well. And read them all. But yeah, if a series is written as a chronological series, then you cannot read a book as a standalone book. And of course, that's a danger or a risk. But at the same time, as long as it's made clear somewhere that this is a book of a series, people will understand. Readers will understand. Ilya, it's the fourth and the first book of the second trilogy. Yeah, I think they made a typo on the site where I'm looking book series and others, because for the fourth in the first series, Dragons of Summerflame, they have a date of 1995, which is 10 years after Spring Dawning. And Time of Twins is at 1986. So I think they made a typo. And before we come to a conclusion of this session, does anyone have a last question? If there are multiple questions, I'll let Dida pick the last one. I don't think I'll be doing any writing tonight anymore. That will be tomorrow. I'm looking at what order to read in, and Summer Flames is listed as the 8th book. Oh, wow. Oh, wait, this was a publication order. Yeah, that's... I'm not even looking at the right... sometimes things can be so... I had picked reading order, but okay. They're not always logical. Yeah, it's fun when series are written and books that have been published later suddenly have to be read earlier because it's chronological. It's way earlier in the series. I guess that's a hazard of the job when someone writes a series and writes so much and has such an extensive world where so much can happen that the author can write so many books, and decides to write a book that plays earlier, and that's okay. That's all part of the fun. But yeah, that doesn't always makes it easier on the reader. How about this? Why do we need to follow the American standard for how books should be according to point of view? In my opinion, we don't need to follow the American standard. Although I do feel, well, Dina, I think it's best if you explain how what you think of what you feel the American standard is. You know way better how to explain that than I do. And while you type that away, I'll say why I feel that we don't need to do that. I feel we need to write the stories we want to write, and especially in basically Europe and Asian countries. Basically, I think a lot that's not USA. We think differently. We have a different audience. We come and that's not necessarily a bad thing, and it's not necessarily a bad thing that that the Americans have a way of thinking. Dida, I feel the American standard is 1 or 2 point of view max. Well, yeah, except for people like I don't know, George R. R. Martin, because he has loads of point of views in his books. just an idea, just a hint. And Sarah J. Maas, I think, is not American, or maybe she is. Or is she Canadian? I don't remember. Sarah J. Maas. Let's see, where does she come from? New York bestseller, yeah. American fantasy author, and she also uses several point of views. But yeah, I don't care about the American standards. Maybe your answer was really concise. Thank you for that. It's like I said earlier like I said in the beginning, you need as many point of views to bring the story across. And if that's 1 or 2, great. If it's 5 or 10, also great. The most important thing is that you bring the story across, and in such a way that it isn't confusing for people, for the readers, and that the story is convincing and is entertaining. Sure, a lot of point of views doesn't contribute to the story, because if you have way too many point of views, the story starts to get confusing. But limiting yourself to 1 or 2 point of views also brings along that, in my humble opinion, also brings along that that there's a risk that you can't express enough in the books of how people are feeling about things that are happening in the world, about things that are happening to the characters, about things that are happening to the families of characters, and family and friends. It's not always enough to have 1 or maybe 2 point of views. It's I feel it's limiting, and why should we limit ourselves? As long as we can make a good, entertaining story, that is a good story, and that can be understood well, then have as many as point of views as the story needs. That's my humble opinion. Okay, for tonight, I would like to leave it at that. I would like to thank you all for coming. and for joining our cabin and going on this journey with all of us. And thank you all for being so open and for asking all those questions. I really appreciate it. For those of you who are watching this video after the live stream is done, you are very welcome to leave questions in the comments and to share your experiences in the comments. And if you're still looking for a cabin to join, I think we still have a few spots left. So please let us know in the comments or contact us on the Nano sites, and we'll invite you. Our cabin is for fantasy writers, so keep that in mind, because that's the best way we can help you. Fantasy writers and world builders, unpublished authors. So that's what we're working on with all of us. I had a lot of fun tonight. I was very happy with all of you, all of your questions and all of your experiences. So thank you for that. And I hope to see you tomorrow in the cabin again. And I wish you all a good night.